G'day, ajmahari here. If I can find it. Pardon me, sorry. The this cold will ever go away. It's getting much better, but it's still annoying. A comment, which I have to find here, sorry. Thought I was prepared. I thought wrongly. Okay, hang on a second. Here it is. So, yeah, this comment was left on the video I did. Excuse me, no, I wasn't on title. Anyway, this comment was left on the video I did. BPD Breakup. What is the BPD final discard? Go from limbo to end of, I think, BPD relationship breakup cycle, something like that. Which a lot of people really need to get doing, right? So this commenter says, I think there are so many individually different variables that play into the dynamic of borderline cycling that it's impossible to predict or micromanage them. Well, it's interesting because what I was talking about in the first place wasn't borderline cycling. It was people with BPD in relationships with people with codependency, or rather people in codependency in relationships with those with borderline personality, who can't stop recycling the, quote, BPD relationship breakup, unquote. That doesn't actually, in many, many cases, in a probably high percentage of cases, the BPD relationship breakup is not a breakup until all the hoovers and the back and the forth and it's just a final discard or not, and what's going on. So I wasn't really talking about borderline cycles per se, as more the dynamics between and in the dyad between the codependent and the borderline and the breakups and the ghosting and the discarding, and how do you know if it's the end or not, and such. So back to the commenter. Like history of your relationship. So these are all the things the person says, individually different variables. Yes, there are, but guess what? People with codependency have their own patterns, pretty thematic. People with BPD have their patterns, individual differences, yes, but pretty thematic, pretty core patterns. And just like they're pretty much core patterns in people with codependency, though, no, not everybody will manifest every single pattern of codependency exactly the same. But when we get into the, quote, breakup, unquote, it seems for more people than not to never be the end, as breakup would kind of indicate that's what's happening, that's what maybe needs to happen. So this person is going to give some reasons, I think, for why this is so difficult. Just breakup cycles, what I was talking about. I'm not sure if the commenter is talking about borderline cycling, but codependents are part of that in the relationship, breakup, ghosting, discarding, not really breakup, right? Commenter says, so there's all these individual variables, like the history of your relationship, personality traits. That's not about, okay, what else is going on in the life of the person with BPD? Well, what else is going on in the life of the person with codependency, as well as the person with BPD? Rationalizations, other mental health issues, your own behavior, and so on. Way too much, says the commenter. Way, way, way too much. That is entirely out of your sphere of responsibility, though. Now you might know why now you might get why I'm doing this video. To reply to this commenter, right? Yes, we have a codependent here, ladies and gentlemen, who thinks that borderline recycling isn't about the relationship recycling, which is a dyad of the borderline and the codependent. As this person is looking at it mostly from the codependent point of view, it's all about the borderline. What else is going on in the life of the borderline? The rationalizations, other mental health issues. And then kind of says, and your behavior too, meaning each person with codependency. And then says, way too much, it's entirely out of your sphere of responsibility, though. T-H. Oh, jeez. It's not how we spell though. But anyway, so what do you think about this if you're somebody with codependency And you are not in no contact. You are not no contact. You are not in a settled BPD relationship, quote, breakup, unquote. It hasn't ended. And that doesn't mean you have to be all over the feelings, or that you might not have started working with anyone yet. You might still be really confused and in a world of hurt. But is this relationship over or not? Is there any acceptance of that? And for more people with codependency than not, the answer is unfortunately no. They're not finished yet. And it's externalizing out repetition, compulsion cycles, and codependency while you're not finished yet. So, way too much that's entirely out of your sphere of responsibility, though. Okay, here we go. So, if you are a person with codependency, you're in any kind of iteration of a breakup, ghosting, discard that you don't know it's final or not, getting hoovered, you've been through the on-off recycling of the relationship multiple times, because it's increasing what people are doing here with the codependency, with the borderline. This commenter says, oh, but all this stuff about the borderline and their recycling, where this is all not your responsibility, though. Yeah, it is. Because what I want to say this very gently and with empathy and compassion, but if you are the codependent and you're in all these iteration cycles, the borderline ghosted you, the borderline discarded you, whatever the difference is until you find out if it's final or not, or they said they want to break up, or maybe at some point you said that, but how can this have nothing to do with your responsibility when really the whole reason why this continues on, yeah, people with BPD ghosting, recycling, hoovering, changing their minds, all of that stuff. But you have to be the codependent on the other end of the phone line, the text message, the hoover, in order for these cycles to continue. So yes, codependents have a humongous responsibility in this. It's called, you need to get into your own healing recovery process. You need to go no contact. You need to stop the cycling and hoovering. And when they ghost you and they slam the door in your face, you need to leave the door shut. These are all within the agency and choice of people with codependency to start taking care of themselves. Now, easier said than done, I understand that. Commenter continues, whoops, I didn't want that. Commenter continues, no, commenter didn't say that. It is a he, I believe. But there are certain tendencies, logistics, I guess. Well, that's very unspecified, very general. But there are certain tendencies, logistics, I guess. Those would be really the responsibility of the person with codependency who's not getting it over now, right? What? Tendencies of whom? Just the borderline? No. You as a codependent as well. Logistics of what? Logistics of what? Do you have any logistics in your situation with the on-off, with the borderline? Put them in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. I always forget to say that. So then, but there are certain tendencies, logistics, I guess, as a commenter. Well, that's quite the guess, because it's really not accurate. For example, the pace of the cycling will likely play into how long devaluation and discard and potential hoovering will take. Oh my, yes. These things can take years to unfold if you hang around and stay attached to the outcome and you don't start doing your own healing recovery work. A long idealization phase. I'm sorry, I don't mean to disrespect this commenter, but wow, do you need an education? You do. A long idealization phase. There's no such thing, but okay. A long idealization phase would likely translate into a long devaluation and so on. I don't mean to laugh, but this is just out of left field. None of this has any bearings or it's not grounded in any truth about this whatsoever. So a long idealization, which people with BPD do not do, phase, would likely transfer into a long devaluation, and so on. Not at all. First of all, the idealization phase isn't that long. People might think it's long if they're with a quiet borderline, everything can seem different. But you might think that idealization phase, as this commenter suggests, really out of left field, not factually oriented, is that what if there's a long idealization phase? Well, even when people have been married for 20 years to a borderline's been married to that person for 20 years. No, they've long since split you to devaluation. Perhaps it's not major splits to devaluation, but it's not like the honeymoon phase and then that's going to be like 20 years long. No, what's long idealization even mean? Because frankly, I'm here to tell you it doesn't exist. So, there is no long idealization that can translate into a long devaluation. Devaluation is boom, now. They feel that way. And maybe they don't, but they don't re-idealize you. Devalue, ooh, they feel that way right now. Not a long thing. And then the commenter says, not guaranteed, but still more often than not. There's nothing about this comment that makes any sense whatsoever. I don't know if this commenter is coming from just a really codependent denial situation of still putting all, like they said in the beginning, that it's the borderline cycling. It's all about the borderline again. And these tendencies and logistics, which is vague language for what exactly? Nothing much, really. And then I just love this. Please don't believe this. Please disavow yourself of this if you've thought this. The pace of cycling will likely play into how long devaluation, discard, and potential hoovering will take. A long idealization phase doesn't exist. Would likely translate into a long devaluation and so on. But it's not guaranteed, says the commenter. Wow. So you do realize, right, that as a person with codependency who's been in a relationship with somebody with BPD, and now it's like they ghosted you or they discarded you or there's a breakup there. That word's there somewhere, but it doesn't mean what it generally means in these situations. So you're in limbo, right? You want them back, you can't get over them, you're ruminating, you can't forget about them, etc., etc. And this comment would have you believe that, if the borderlines ghosted you or discarded you, which is on them, right? That's their issues playing out, yes. But see, people with codependency too often, because of the unhealthy bonds, etc., and everything else going on, you might not be so consciously aware of right now. Well, you have this huge responsibility, not for anything the borderline's doing, or for how devastating it is when they ghost you or discard you, and you don't know if it's the final one, etc., as I talked about in that podcast episode up on the channel. But here's the thing, you do need to find your way if you're a codependent in these recycling situations with the borderline. It's a dynamic, it's a dyad, it's not just the borderline. Yeah, they're off doing what they're doing, they're responsible for that. But I'm here to say the obvious, right? People with codependency need to learn how, getting into a healing recovery process, to learn how to start focusing on yourself and stop focusing on the borderline. And yes, it hurts. And yes, it's confusing. And for many people, they don't know how they're going to go on in this nightmare of maybe you've recycled on and off a few times or more. And now you're ghosted to discard again, or you're not sure. This limbo place. After everything that the borderline does, right, that's their responsibility. This limbo place has a tremendous amount of responsibility for the codependent in it. And why do I say that? Because you need to find your way toward and get working with someone if you can't do it on your own. But you need to close the door. You need to end it. You need to let it be over. Every time you recycle or you sit there waiting for a hoover or you reverse hoover, that's your responsibility. It's not all on the person with BPD. So if you have codependency, why not ask yourself this question today? 2 questions. A, are you working with anybody? And if not, why not? And B, whatever iteration of whatever's going on, you may not know. And B, what do you think is stopping you, blocking you, or rendering you feeling like you're incapable of stopping this relationship cycle, or that you don't want to let go? And the cognitive dissonance and remembering the quote good times, which get really outweighed by their opposite. What is it that's keeping you stuck right now? And are you aware that you're making this choice yourself? You're not making the choices that the borderline is making, but the choices that they're making are all big red flags for you to initiate for yourself. Don't even tell them. The no contact, the boundary, the getting into healing recovery process, working with someone, because it needs to be a final, an ending, a breakup. You have control over that. The borderline may not know what they want. They may come back 2 years later. What are you going to do in the meantime? Sit there and wait for them? Or are you going to take the bull by the horns, so to speak, even though it feels impossible and it hurts too much and it's not what you want? But people with codependency have all the responsibility in the world for whether you stay in this cycle, recycling limbo plays, or whether you get yourself out of it by slamming that door shut. And then, if not before, getting to working with somebody so that you can be helped to heal and recover and be able to hold no contact or get to no contact and move forward. These relationships cycling around in circles for weeks, months, years, they're not going to work out. So why are you wasting your life, if you have codependency, in these cycles? And I understand a lot of the reasons. But, share in the comments below what you think about this message. How many times have you thought about that this really isn't working and you really should stop it, but you don't know how? What do you think about that? Because that's wherein lies in the middle of all this codependent responsibility. And not for what the borderline's doing, not for the ghosting and the discarding, but you're part of the dyad, of the dynamic of not getting the relationship breakup to be an ending for you. Take care.